All right, Nuggets fans, welcome in to Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by our good old friends at BetOnline at number 38. I am your host, Ryan Blackburn, at NBA Blackburn on Twitter, part of the Mile High Sports Podcast Network, and I am excited to be here on a Monday morning and try to give everybody the old rundown on why the Nuggets are 0-2 right now, because as I so astutely put in the title of this show, 0-2 is not awesome. It's not great. And I don't think anybody was fully prepared for Denver to look as bad as they have through 2 games. The bench is bad. The starters are iffy. There's a lot of questions. Jokic is awesome, but everybody kind of knew that. So what's going on? What's happening? Why is this going on? And what can the Nuggets do to turn this around quickly over the course of these next few games? And fortunately, I think that they will. So we'll get into why. We'll talk about some of the things that I think that Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray have figured out together once again. And then we're going to rank some turnaround possibilities for the Nuggets, things that I think will be most impactful for the Nuggets, and then preview the final road trip. But before we get into any of that, got to tell everybody about BetOnline. It's that time of year again, basketball fans. The NBA is back from opening tip-off to buzzer beaters. BetOnline has you covered with the best odds, biggest promotions, and live in-game betting on all of your favorite teams. This season, every game matters. BetOnline has every stat, matchup breakdown, and live odds to bet on during the game. And it's not just the NBA. BetOnline has a lot of other props. Just make sure to go head on over to their website today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here. Once again, I'm your host, Ryan Blackburn. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Would really appreciate it. Let's talk initially about some Nuggets Clippers thoughts. It was looking dark. Not going to lie. It was looking bad initially for the Denver Nuggets. And I think that I can say, along with everybody, that when the Nuggets were hard stuck on 24 points in the middle of the second quarter against the Clippers, and the bench couldn't do anything, and then the starters came back in, and the starters couldn't do anything, and everything was just looking horrible, it looked bleak. It looked like the Nuggets had a lot to figure out, and that they may not be able to with the personnel that they have, because Denver's pretty healthy. Like, Peyton Watson's getting back into it, but everybody else that you would expect in the rotation outside of Deron Holmes, who you obviously didn't expect given a torn Achilles, everybody's been healthy. Everybody's been available. These are what the Nuggets are going to have for a potential playoff run. So there's a lot of scaredness from the Nuggets right now. And then Denver hit some threes. And Denver finished the game at 40% from three, despite the fact that they missed their last couple. One was a heave by Jamal Murray. One was an attempted foul draw by Nikola Jokic, which I'm going to be honest, Jokic was 7 of 11 at that point from three. Dude, you were so good in the fourth quarter. Just take the three, take the shot, man. Don't try to hunt for fouls. I don't need to tell Jokic what to do. He clearly is, he's the greatest basketball player in the world, greatest basketball player that the Nuggets will ever have. And that was kind of an odd decision, down 3 against the Clippers, to take that particular shot. But you can't blame Jokic. He had 41. You can't blame him. He had 7 of 12 from 3 overall. It was a career high for him in the regular season on 3 points. And that, to me, is a really interesting sign, and it's a super interesting wrinkle for what the Nuggets are going to expect from their starting lineup this year, which, with Christian Braun out there, it's a little bit different. So it's very interesting. It's one of those that I think you're going to see some evolution from this Nuggets team, and I think a lot of that is going to come from Nikola Jokic himself. But Murray found some spots. Jokic spaced from 3. Christian Braun helped. I think he continues to look pretty good overall in the starting lineup. The bench is still atrocious, unfortunately. Aaron Gordon and Michael Porter still need to wake up a bit, of course. And yes, the defense collapsed in the second half. It didn't look very good. But the offense, I think, found something. And I think they found something with Jokic spacing the floor a little bit more, not posting up as much, not doing everything as a post up player and operating from the top a little bit more, maybe running some off ball movement as a center, trying to leverage and extend the defense out a little bit and draw defenders to him, draw rim protectors to him. And that could really help players like Christian Braun, Aaron Gordon, potentially Jamal Murray. There's a lot of reason to think that Denver found a little bit with their starting lineup, I think. The starters haven't really been the issue, if we're being honest, though. The lineups that Denver has really struggled with are the bench lineups. I am very interested to see how that's going to evolve for Denver and whether Joker's going to continue to shoot, whether Murray and Porter will continue to shoot. Porter's going to shoot better. I don't have that many concerns with Porter because we have so much data about him being one of the best catch and shoot players in the NBA. So far, he's shooting 20% from three on catch and shoots. Last year, he was the second best volume shooter behind Steph Curry on catch and shoots. So I'm not worried about Michael Porter. He's going to figure it out. They need him to figure it out faster. But I do think that there's just some stuff that they can evaluate. So I'm going to throw up a couple graphics on the screen, actually. Here's one. These are Nuggets minutes with and without Nikola Jokic so far in this season. And the reason why I'm putting this up is I threw out a number in my article this morning for the what to watch for versus the Toronto Raptors. This is the stat of the day and potentially the stat of the season. The number is 24.2. 24.2 equals the number of minutes that Denver's starting lineup has played together per game so far this year. A lot of people, including me, thought that the Nuggets wouldn't be so reliant on their starting lineup. And that may still evolve. This is the ultimate small sample size for the Nuggets. But there's still some things that they have to figure out. And one of those is figuring out some lineups that work without Nikola Jokic, or lineups that work with Nikola Jokic, but without his best running mate, Jamal Murray. And people aren't going to like this next one, but let me show you this one. So Russell Westbrook so far has played 18 minutes with Jokic, 22 without. Can you guess which minutes are horrible? The answer is both of them, but for different reasons. Aaron Gordon, right below him, has played 68 of his minutes with Jokic and 1 without him. That to me should be the first indicator that Denver might need to change up their rotations a little bit, but keep going. Dario Saric, 0 minutes with Jokic, 22 without. I'm not surprised by this one because Dario was brought in to be backup center. I know that there was some talk about him playing next to Jokic. I don't think that that's going to work. I think that that's going to be pretty slow, pretty bogged down. Yes, they're both smart, but they're not going to be able to keep up defensively. Jamal Murray, 61 minutes with Jokic, 15 without. I think that's about the right proportion. Skip Flacco. Michael Porter, 62 minutes with Jokic, 8 without. Denver tried the MPJ stagger at the beginning of this, late first, early second quarter in this last Clippers game. Didn't work. They actually looked way worse. Skip Pickett, Skip Najee, they haven't played really. Julian Strawther, about even in terms of minutes with and without Jokic. Christian Braun, 60 minutes with Jokic, 4 without. I think that one is okay because I think that Braun should be tethered to Jokic. He will give good defensive opportunities, but there will also be times where you don't want Christian Braun out there and you want somebody who's going to be a spacer. The minutes that Christian Braun played without Jokic, though, he was actually pretty good. It was actually pretty solid, kind of bridging the gap between the starters and the second unit at the end of the third quarter last game. Christian Braun was pretty solid. And then Peyton Watson has only played 5 minutes with Jokic and 21 minutes without. So that's one set of numbers. The next set should be very fascinating to people. These are the minutes and the net ratings with and without Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray on the floor. With both of the stars, both of the max players Denver's okay. Plus 6.44 net rating in 61 minutes. That's overall, it's good. It's not great. It needs to be higher, of course. Last year was plus 15. It will get higher. It will get better. Then you go to Jamal Murray without Jokic as the next one. Minus 11.88 net rating. Defense has actually been pretty good with that group, but the offense has been atrocious. The next one is the number that a lot of people are going to be confused about. With Jokic, without Murray, 11 minutes, minus 56 net rating. This is where that screenshot originated, where Russell Westbrook, Peyton Watson, and Aaron Gordon are on the floor all at the same time trying to space, or not really trying to space, on a Jokic post-up. And Jokic is going to need, if Murray isn't out there, he's going to need a little bit more spacing than this. I think if Murray isn't out there, the guys who should be out there are Julian Strawther and Michael Porter, and then maybe Christian Brown, depending on the situation. And I guess you need a point guard, so Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook, Christian Brown, Julian Strawther, Michael Porter, Nikola Jokic. That would be a good lineup that Denver should try to get to in those minutes without Jamal Murray if the plan is to stagger Murray. And I guess that's probably going to be the plan. But we don't know. We don't know for sure. And then in the minutes where Jokic and Murray aren't out there, only 9 so far. Again, this is all very small sample size. 36 offensive rating, 100 defensive rating, minus 63 net rating. That is about as bad as it's going to get. So there are things that Denver has to worry about. The starting lineup minutes are not them. I think that Jokic and Murray specifically are going to be fine. They have a lot of chemistry together. Every lineup that those two are going to play together, for the most part, the Nuggets can work with. They'll figure it out. As long as it's not like too much Westbrook and Peyton Watson together with those guys, where there's just not a lot of spacing around the floor, they'll be fine. It's the minutes where Denver's kind of trying to figure out, okay, what happens when our main formula, the Jokic-Murray two-man game / spacing offense, is not really viable. And I don't have a great answer for right now. Maybe Denver can find a great answer on this road trip. That's at least the possibility. Let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to do which turnarounds, like ranking the turnaround possibilities. Which turnarounds would be most impactful for the Denver Nuggets, where a player is playing badly or something's happening that's not good, and then it turns out to be very good after this road trip. We will be right back on Pickaxe and Roll. All right, back at it, Pickaxe and Roll. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Would really, really appreciate it. Let's do these turnarounds. Let's talk about this because, look, I think that Jokic and Murray, like I said in the first segment, they're going to be fine. They're going to figure stuff out. I think that Porter's going to get back to being the level of shooter that we know that he can be. But that would be the one that's most impactful, right? That's my main top turnaround that I think Denver needs to have as soon as possible. Michael Porter shooting 3 of 15 on catch and shoot jumpers. It's one of the worst volume numbers in the entire NBA so far. I think that there's going to be a reckoning here relatively soon where Michael Porter, he's going to hit 5 threes, 6 threes, and everybody's going to be like, we love you, man. It's great. It's awesome. Immediately after him being like pretty bad for the first 2 games. I actually thought that Porter's defense in this last game was pretty solid. Both ends, he was not good in game 1, but I thought he really turned some things around in game 2 as a defensive player. He just didn't know when and how to shoot the basketball, which is just so weird for a guy like Porter. So I think that will make the most sense for Denver if they're really hoping to amp some things up. Got a question here from non-NBA channel. Can you see us trading our first-round pick in 2031 and Peyton Watson to move our bad contracts like Saric, Westbrook, Pickett, Hunter, or is Booth too stubborn to accept it's a losing squad? It just depends on what Denver gets back. Like, Can they make a trade where they include Peyton Watson and a 2031 first round pick? Sure. Is that the right course of action for Denver? It depends on what ultimately they're getting back. If you get back somebody that's like really freaking good and is also capable to be on the team for a long time, then maybe you consider something like that. But I am not at the point. I know fans are at this point. I'm not at the point where I'm talking trades. I just don't really want to talk trades. I want to see if Denver can figure this out with this group because this is the 9 real guys that Calvin Booth is talking about. We'll talk about some of these other guys trying to turn some things around, but Peyton Watson is one that I think will clearly turn things around. He is rusty. He'll be fine. Yeah, Michael Porter's going to figure it out. I'm not worried about Michael Porter either. Number 2, Jamal Murray amps up the usage. This is one where I've looked at it. I've looked at all the numbers. Murray has had, like, his game against OKC was not as bad as people think. And then his game against the Clippers was better. It was, I think, a pretty solid performance. 22 points, 5 assists. He made a bad turnover. He probably drove in a situation where he didn't need to drive. He's under a microscope because when Jokic plays as well as he does, if anybody ever takes a shot ever other than Joker, especially one where they dribble, then they're going to be put under a microscope. I think that Murray has to figure out a way, especially when Joker's not on the floor, to continue taking over and find opportunities where he can put his imprint on the game. Because I'm going to be honest, 14 shots in each of the first 2 games, it's just not enough. And maybe it would be enough if he gets to the free throw line a whole bunch, but he doesn't. He's going to be a more finesse player. He's going to try to create shots for himself that with the intention of them going in, as opposed to just trying to draw fouls. He's not doing that. Like, that's not his game. I don't think he's capable of doing that physically for the long term, if I'm being honest. So you want him to get as many good shots as possible. And he got some good shots in that Clippers game. I thought that he looked really good. He was very good on catch and shoots. He was not awesome on pull-ups, but so far on the season, 2 of 5 from 3 on pull-up threes. He is 6 of 15 on overall pull-up jumpers, which is 4 of 10. So 40% from 2-point range and 40% from 3-point range. So if I'm looking at that number and I'm looking at the Nuggets, I'm like, please take more pull-up threes instead of pull-up twos because those are worth more. If you're shooting the same percentage, take the pull-up 3. So if he could get to that pull-up 3 a little bit more consistently, that would really help. I think, and I said this on Locked On last night, I think he needs to be averaging 25 a game. I know that I think he's capable of it. I do. And I don't think it wouldn't take that much. Like, he had 22 on 14 shots in this last game. Just take an extra shot or 2. It's not that hard. He could definitely do it. And Nuggets fans are going to have to live with that because he should be taking those shots with the way that Denver's roster is right now. Like, Russell Westbrook's currently 2 of 18. Jamal Murray, I think, is 11 of 24? No, 11 of 28. He was 4 of 14, 7 of 4, 11 of 28, somewhere around that. But he's actually spacing. So Denver needs their spacers to be aggressive, and he is one of them. Number 3, Russell Westbrook finds the driving and cutting lanes. Okay, also, I need to address this comment. LeBron at 40 moves better than Murray. LeBron is the most impressive physical marvel that I think I've ever seen in my life. Like, normal people don't move that way. Normal basketball players don't move that way. Obviously, LeBron is he looks fantastic. He plays fantastic. Murray's game has never been predicated on athleticism. It's more about quick twitch, getting and moving with agility. He's got to get back to some of that, but he's never going to be like this physical driver. Like, he's not going to drive the basketball like LeBron. He's going to shoot way better than LeBron. He always has in his career. So I'm not like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Come on. Russell Westbrook finds the driving and cutting lanes. Obviously, look, Russ is 2 of 18 from the field, 1 of 9 from 3. he can't be taking 50% of his shots from three. That's stupid. I know that the math overall says that the Nuggets need to take more threes, not him, not Russell Westbrook. Russ needs to be driving. He needs to be creating those shots for other people. He needs to be somebody who's setting up Julian Strawther a little bit more. How many assists has he had to Julian Strawther so far this year? Probably not enough. That needs to get back to where it needs to go. I really liked what I saw from Russ in the preseason, creating for Julian Strawther and for some of the Nuggets shooters. There was one possession that he had against OKC where he drove in transition and then kicked out to Jamal Murray in the corner. That's what we should be looking for from Russ. He has to collapse the paint. He has to force opposing players to adjust. He has to be willing to finish and capable of finishing at the rim. But he does not do everything from a three-point perspective and pull up twos. Like, that's just we've said it over and over again with Russell Westbrook. Like, he has a very distinct game that is not focused on jump shooting. And if he starts focusing on jump shooting, it better be because he's making them, because it's not tremendous. Okie dokie asks, Ryan, how does one get Murray going? Let's say the Nuggets decide to sacrifice the next 10 games in order to get Murray going. What do? They don't need to sacrifice the next 10 games, man. Like, they just need to continue to play. Like, people are going to hate this, but they need to play Murray with the bench unit. They need to have Murray running high pick and roll with Dario Saric a little bit. They need to be having Russell Westbrook looking to set up Murray on the second unit, and then him taking shots and being willing to take shots with that group and really hunting his own shot. It's a mind switch for Murray when he's out there. He has been mostly a setup guy for much of the offense. Like, his usage rate is way down through the first two games. I'm not really sure why, but his usage rate is a little bit lower than it should be. Last year was up at like 25, 26. This year, let me just go look it up real quick because I shouldn't say stuff and then not have the number. Jamal Murray's usage rate so far this season is 19.7. On his career, it's 24.7. He just needs to get back to shooting the regular number of shots that he does, and then Denver will be okay. I think that he could even push it higher than that, but it's just an aggressive switch for him. He can't be going into this season looking to kind of feel things out. He talks about UFC all the time. He absolutely needs to not be a UFC guy in this situation. He needs to go hunt and kill. Like, that should be like, or maybe the analogy is better for a boxer that wants to feel out the opponent before really being technical. Jamal needs to go hunt for his shots. And if he can do that, then it will relieve some of the pressure, especially the scoring pressure, on the rest of the roster, including Jokic. Jokic doesn't want to be scoring 30 and 40 points the entire time. He would rather be scoring 22, having 15 assists and 15 rebounds. That's what he wants to do. Number 4, pull-up shooting. I mentioned pull-up threes for Murray. He's 2 of 5. Jokic is, I think, 1 of 4. The rest of the Nuggets, the entire rest of the team, is 0 for 4 on pull-up threes. Denver does not have a lot of pull-up shooting threats. The hope was that Julian Strawther would be one of those guys for Denver this year. Other NBA teams are also struggling. Like, this isn't just a Denver problem. There are some teams that are really good at pull-up shooting, like the Boston Celtics, teams that have a whole bunch of guys that can space from three-point range that are guards and wings. But for the most part, other teams are struggling too. So this isn't just a Denver problem. But I think the pull-up shooting would go a long way for the Nuggets, and it would allow some of those driving lanes to open up. Now, the big question, of course, is who's doing it. If it's Russell Westbrook, that's a problem. If it's Julian Strawther and Michael Porter, that's great. If it's Christian Braun and Peyton Watson, I'm more okay with it than I am Russell Westbrook, because I think that there's at least the possibility that those guys continue to develop into shooters, continue to develop into guys that can space the floor throughout the rest of their careers. But for the most part, Are the Nuggets going to be able to handle, like, are they going to be able to have enough pull-up shooting on their roster in order to make it work? If it's Aaron Gordon, probably not a good idea. It's obviously Dario Saric isn't doing that, but Murray's really the guy. Porter's really the second guy, and Julian Strawther's the third that I'm looking at for this. They've got to just continue to improve those games overall and become the spacing threats that opposing teams have to respect on a consistent basis. Number 5, Aaron Gordon plays big. He shot 65.4% from 2 on shots that are less than 10 feet last year. This year, he's shooting 46%. He's down. He's not necessarily doing a whole bunch efficiently from 2-point range. He's taken a few pull-up jumpers. Sometimes those look really good, but he's not really doing the thing where he's getting to the rim and like bodying some smaller defender and then finishing over the top of them. Haven't been as many backdoor cuts for him, although Jokic did hit him with a nice alley-oop in the game on Saturday. Chet and Ivica Zubac, Chet Holmgren and Ivica Zubac, those are very strong rim protectors, so I'm not really surprised that this is happening. But he was matched up with smaller wings, Aaron Gordon, and he could not really go at them the way that he probably should. So that's one that I'm looking at. He has to either, in my opinion, he has to either dominate the paint or he has to step behind the three-point line consistently. Can't be hanging out in the mid-range, can't be doing all those things. He's got to do one or the other. Denver needs as many money ball players as they can possibly get. I think the one that's more likely is obviously at the rim. So I think that he should be trying to get there as quickly as possible. Fernando asks, is it possible AG is still banged up, Ryan? It is. It is possible. I think it was a calf injury that that Michael Malone said he sustained back in Abu Dhabi. Obviously, that might be limiting some of the athleticism a little bit, but it has also been nearly a month since Abu Dhabi happened. So I don't know what to give him in terms of a timeline here, but he hasn't been showing up on the injury report. I would expect that he's mostly okay, at least from a regular season normalcy standpoint. Against the Toronto Raptors, this should be an opportunity for him later today to be able to get here. So I'm very curious to see how it goes. We have our first super chat of the day. Is this Russian dollars? From Plus. Thank you so much for the 500 RSD. Do you think Malone might be losing the locker room? I don't feel his coaching has been impactful for a while now. Losing the locker room is a little bit strong, but there has been some concern, I guess, about is the team listening to what he's saying. There was a moment in the first game that I think Aaron Gordon, no, it was Michael Porter. It was either the first game or second game. I don't remember, honestly. They kind of blend together, where Michael Porter made a pass up ahead, a really nice bounce pass along the lane to Christian Brown for a dunk, and it forced a timeout for the opposition. And Michael Malone was amped. He was high-five. He was very excited for it. And Michael Porter just kind of gave him a quick little high-five and went to the sideline. I don't know. I think that I always want to be very supportive of Michael Malone. I think he's a great coach. I honestly think that he cares so much about this team and has consistently shown that level of care more than just about anybody on the roster. So I think that he has been underrated in terms of what he does. And if I'm being honest, I think the problems are more suited for Calvin Booth than they are for Michael Malone. But the fact is if the team is not responding to him, then Denver has some larger questions. So whatever it is, Michael Malone has to figure it out. And I hope that he does, but we'll find out together. So thank you for the Super Chat Plus. Really appreciate it. Where were we at? Aaron Gordon. All right, let's get back on track. A couple more here. Peyton Watson and Julian Strawther obviously need to continue to get going. Peyton Watson, he has looked horrible in the first two games. That should not be unexpected, because he hasn't really had a training camp, didn't have a preseason. He's just trying to get out there and play consistently over the course of these next couple of games. I think that this one against the Raptors is going to be kind of tough for him. The Raptors have a lot of the same kind of physical big forwards. They're going to pack the paint. They're going to do everything they can to be disruptive. Watson, if he can find a way, he's got to find some time to guard Scotty Barnes, to be an impactful player against him. There aren't a ton of other wings for him to guard on Toronto. Like, Toronto's really banged up. Emmanuel Quickly, I think, is going to be doubtful. RJ Barrett is questionable, so maybe he can get some time against RJ if he plays. But they just don't have a lot of guys that really make sense for Peyton Watson to guard. And then on the offensive end, you obviously want to see that. Like I mentioned before, he hasn't played a ton of time with Jokic yet, and then most of his time has been played with some other non-spacing threats. So I'm still waiting on it with him. And then Julian Strawther, of course, you want to see what he can do if given more shots, if he can get some shots up and be very consistent with that. I think that he can, like, based off of what we saw in the preseason and based off of what he showed, there's no reason why he can't get it going. It's early. He's only played 500 career minutes in his NBA career before this season. So I'm not surprised that it's a little bit slow on the get up. He's going to be really important. And I think that if the spacing is really important for the Nuggets, Julian Strawther becomes really important. So they got to keep him in the loop. And then number 7, Dario Saric. Obviously, Dario has also been just horrible. And the Nuggets need to figure some stuff out with him. I think his defense has been a little bit better than the sort of reputation has for him. Like, if you look at the numbers, let me just put these numbers back up on screen here. With Jokic off the floor, the Nuggets are allowing an 89.66 defensive rating when Murray's out there. And then when Murray isn't out there, it's a 100 defensive rating so far. So it's not like their defense has been horrible. I know that people are going to point to him and be like, hey, I can't believe he gave up that shot at the rim. I can't believe he looks so slow out there. But it also hasn't been as bad as I think a lot of people think. The problem is just the offense is horrible, and he's just not really making any shots or any plays on the offensive end. Playing with Russell Westbrook is really hard, and he's got to get it adjusted. He's got to figure it out. Those two, that chemistry is probably the most important on the team outside of Jokic and Murray. So I'm very curious to see whether they're going to be able to get back to it or not. But Saric, if they could get him going, that would be a big deal. Let's take another break. When we come back, we are going to chat about this upcoming road trip and what to expect. I'm very curious to see what people think Denver's record will be. And we'll chat really quickly on that on the other side. We'll be right back on Pickaxe and Roll. Final segment, Pickaxe and Roll. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Let's wrap things up by talking about this 3-game road trip. Today, Denver is playing Toronto. As I mentioned multiple times through this podcast, Toronto's pretty banged up. It would not surprise me if Denver got back on track. It would surprise me if they still struggled. Like, there are a couple of guys, couple of nice defenders on Toronto. One in particular, actually, there are two in particular that I want to go over. Davion Mitchell is not one of them. He is a guy that Jamal Murray has seen over the course of his career. You know the thing with Davion Mitchell. He's going to be aggressive, but he's also shorter. I think that Jamal could be successful with him. The other two are Jamal Shed and Jonathan Mogbo. Shed is, and I think that's how you pronounce his name. Both of them are rookies. Toronto drafted some interesting, talented rookies. Shed is very similar to Davion Mitchell. I'm not sure how much bigger he is, but he's a very skilled on-ball defender who's going to be pretty disruptive. But the real one is Mogbo. Mogbo's going to play, and he'll probably guard Jamal on the second unit. If he does, he's got a lot of length, athleticism, moves his feet really well. Somebody that's kind of like an OG Anunoby type from a defensive perspective, a Jaden McDaniels type, a Herb Jones type. Very much length, athleticism, defensive instincts, looks really good. Jamal's going to have his work cut out for him in this game, but I do think that Jamal will have a good game. It's going to be about the off-ball movement and finding a way to create space and then use his dribble moves to get off some jumpers. I think he can do it, but that's an important one. Joker, obviously, he's going up against Jakob Poeltl. He's not going to bang with him the entire time, but if he does get a switch, it's going to either be against Scotty Barnes or some very small wings for Toronto. Denver should be trying to run Jakob Poeltl as often as possible through screens, doing things that they can to free up Jokic. If those two have a good game, I think Denver wins because the Toronto bench just isn't great. I can't imagine that Denver's bench is as bad as it's been in the first two games. They were, I think, 7 of 25 in the first game and 3 of 18 in the second game. If it's that bad again, then we'll be raising some alarm bells from the mountaintops. That's for sure. And then tomorrow against Brooklyn, Denver plays a back-to-back. So they go from Toronto to Brooklyn. It's not that far of a trip or anything like that, but it is a back-to-back. Brooklyn's been playing pretty good. They've been playing pretty strongly. I don't know if they're 2-1 or 1-2, but they did just beat Milwaukee. And they looked way better than Milwaukee. Dennis Schroeder, Cam Thomas, both of those guys are dangerous pull-up shooters. And the Nuggets are going to have to press up a little bit against them, try to take away as many of those opportunities as possible. Will that leave them vulnerable on the backside, on drives, or not drives, on cuts down the lane? Yes. But I think that Denver can live with that against Brooklyn more so than they can live with the wide open pull-up jump shooting of Cam Thomas or Dennis Schroeder. So we'll see what they do with that. But Denver has a chance. Like, Brooklyn is starting Ben Simmons right now. They'll bring both Nick Claxton and Noah Clowney off the bench, two bigs that could really help against Jokic, but it just wouldn't surprise me if Joker in that particular game has like 20 rebounds and finishes with 30 points because he is getting fouled consistently and he's grabbing offensive rebounds consistently. So that wouldn't surprise me in that one. Denver can win both of those games. They actually should win both of those games if we're being honest. Like, I know that they're both road games, but Denver should win those. And then Friday, they get a couple days off before they go to Minnesota. And I think that Denver has a chance to win that one too with where Minnesota is currently at. Yes, Minnesota is still very good, but they are also working in Julius Randle. They're still trying to figure out exactly what they want to do with that. But Minnesota, as great as they have looked against Denver in the past, is a slightly different team now. They're trying to work in some different pieces. Dante DiVincenzo, kind of like Michael Porter, has not shot the three ball well. So maybe Denver catches them on a bad day. Maybe Denver catches them on a great day and they get very amped for playing against Denver and Denver loses. But the Nuggets, I still think, have a chance to win that one as well. And we'll find out. We'll see what happens. But I am curious to see how Minnesota will choose to defend Denver. Like, are they going to play Rudy Gobert on Jokic straight up in that case? Are they going to play Julius Randle on him and have Rudy rotate over from the backside when Aaron Gordon is out there? Could Denver try to go smaller and put Michael Porter at the 4 and try to eliminate that? I think there is a very interesting case. We'll find out. Cedric, he says, Adam Murray said we could get Bruce Brown back on the taxpayer MLE next year. Any opinion, Ryan? I think that that's a very good opinion. And it is, I think, pretty reasonable. Bruce has a lot of love in his heart for Denver. The Nuggets have a lot of love for Bruce. He is a versatile two-way player that the Nuggets could try to get back. Clearly, things haven't worked out for him in Toronto so far. He's currently injured. He's going to be out in tomorrow's game. But I do think that, in general, the Nuggets are kind of lacking a Bruce Brown type. Somebody that they could play at a variety of different positions and be okay. So, I mean, I think it's possible. I don't know who's going to play Bruce or who's going to pay Bruce Brown big money this offseason. He already got paid. And I think that because of the contract that he got, he may be like, you know what? I got my money. Let's go back to Denver and try to win. That's a very strong possibility. And Denver, because of the Aaron Gordon contract, the way that it was signed, they have the flexibility money-wise to be able to sign Bruce Brown for the taxpayer MLE. So that'll be interesting. Um, so if Denver over the course of these next 3 games goes 3-0 or 2-1, I won't be surprised, honestly. I think that Denver, despite the fact that things feel pretty down right now at 0-2, I think that there is a strong possibility that they turn things around and things feel a lot better when Denver comes back from the road. Sometimes if you're a team that has some home struggles, that can't shoot, that's just looks like things are kind of distracted, not necessarily playing your best basketball, the best thing you can do is have a road trip where you get together as a team, you get away from the distractions, you bounce back, you get some easy wins, and then you get a tough win if you're facing Minnesota. Could be a big deal. So I'm curious to see how the Nuggets handle it, who steps up in these situations. There's also a possibility they go 0-3 or 1-2. And I think you got to leave open the possibility of any of those records happening just because of we don't know what the actual team is going to show. I think they're going to be good. I think they're going to be a lot better. I think that Jamal Murray will bounce back, and I think that Michael Porter is going to figure out how to shoot again. Shocker. But if they don't, or if there's something that the opposing teams do that kind of disrupts what the Nuggets are trying, that could also be a major issue in Denver if they go 1-2 or 0-3, and the Nuggets come back from the road either 1-4 or 0-5. That's when the alarm bells will start to go off. That's when Denver is going to be kind of like certainly an in vogue pick to just say they're done. I think I saw an article earlier today that the Nuggets are just cooked, that they there's no way that they can win again. Even I wouldn't go that far because Denver, they just have a couple of things to figure out. And if they don't, then they have a little bit of trade flexibility, not a ton, but they've got a little bit to be able to get better. But for now, I just want to see them provide some fight. I want to see the bench shoot a little bit better. And if they do, things are going to feel a lot different. So I'm excited. I think this is going to be a very telling week for the Nuggets. 2 sets of back-to-backs, Monday, Tuesday on the road, Friday, Saturday, road home. And we're going to find out by the end of Saturday night, are the Nuggets in trouble? Or was some of the concerns overblown? We'll find out. All right, everybody, that is going to do it for this episode of Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by our good friends over at BetOnline. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Really appreciate all the love and support on the podcast as always, folks. Please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I will be back tomorrow morning after the Nuggets play the Toronto Raptors. We will have that episode at 10 a.m. as usual. And then after that, we're gonna get into this rhythm. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button on the way out. I will talk to you guys very soon.